The South Korea-U.S. alliance witnessed dynamic geopolitical changes over the past 7 decades, but it still remained solid, remaining the linchpin of peace and security in the Asia-Pacific region. But the very purpose and effectiveness of the alliance as a post-Cold War tool for achieving security aims are increasingly being questioned. Is it effective after all this time? On today's Zoom In segment, we want to take a closer look at the past, the present, and the future of the defense partnership between Seoul and Washington, marking the 70th anniversary. Professor Min Jeong-hun at the Korean National Diplomatic Academy joins us via Zoom. Good morning, Professor Min.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for joining us, and happy Friday to you. Professor Min, can we perhaps start out with a little bit of history lesson behind the alliance for our listeners who may be not so well versed in Korean history? Could you first explain when and why the alliance was formed?
Yes, the South Korea-U.S. alliance was formed in 1953, and it was officially established through the Mutual Defense Treaty between the Republic of Korea and the United States of America, which was signed in October 1st, 1953. As you know, North Korea invaded South Korea in June 1950, and the Korean War lasted about 3 years, and it was over in 1953. But at the time, South Korea did not have enough military capabilities to protect itself from military attacks from North Korea, and was concerned about its security from potential military threats and attacks from the North in the future. So South Korean government requested the United States to have a security treaty and form an alliance as a way of securing its security in the Korean Peninsula. Meanwhile, U.S. recognized the strategic importance of South Korea to prevent the Soviet Union from spreading over its influence over the Korean Peninsula and the East Asia in the beginning of the Cold War. As a result, the two countries, the South Korea and the United States, agreed to form the alliance through the Mutual Defense Treaty in 1953.
And as we've pointed out, 7 decades since that alliance, a lot has happened. And to ask you to pinpoint the most prominent changes and significant events, we understand that it's a challenge. But can you help us at least better understand some of the biggest and most prominent events since that alliance was formed, taking note and regarding the alliance, which survived actually probably the most rapidly evolving regional security dynamic since the 1950s?
Yes, so many events that took place because it went through about 70 years. But the ROK-US alliance, or the South Korea-US alliance, began as a military and security alliance back in the 1950s. And the main purpose of the alliance was to protect South Korea from military threats posed by the North Korea. But as time went by, South Korea achieved rapid economic growth from the 1970s and became one of the 4 tigers in East Asia. And based on the economic growth of South Korea, U.S. requested South Korea to take the burden sharing for its military presented in South Korea in the 1990s. And since 2008, based on the economic growth of South Korea and the changing strategic consideration of the United States, the ROK-US alliance has been transformed as the comprehensive strategic alliance, which means that the alliance has got more various issues to deal with and larger areas to cover to contribute itself to achieving the world peace and prosperity. So now it covers various agendas, including security and military, economy, technology, energy, and human exchange.
So it's expanded clearly in the decades of existence. But as you've pointed out, the primary purpose of the alliance was, of course, designed to initially protect South Korea from North Korean threats. Given the increasing focus on modernizing weapons in North Korea and its missiles development program, of course, some are raising questions about the alliance's effectiveness. Maybe not so much on the expansion, but that original intention. Some are even calling it an outdated Cold War II What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I the personally respect the various thoughts and opinions about the effectiveness of the ROK-US alliance, but personally, I don't agree that the alliance has been outdated since the end of the Cold War. Because as I mentioned a moment ago, the alliance has been transformed, considering the changing situations around the Korean Peninsula and the international relations in the world. And it's very the sorry to hear that the North Korea just has been focused on improving its military capabilities, although its people has been suffered from serious economic difficulties. But I need to say that the alliance has been the cornerstone or form the basis to protect the South Korea from North Korea's military threats, and it also the alliance has been also functioned as a very important security establishment to protect and cover the security situations or the security stability in East Asia and Indo-Pacific region. So the alliance has been changing, considering the changing situations covering the Korean Peninsula and East Asia and the Indo-Pacific region nowadays. So the alliance has been functioned as one of the very important security the mechanism for the regional security.
In fact, Professor Min, I do think majority of South Koreans do share your view, and they would agree that the alliance is what kept South Korea safe from North Korea, and it still remains a crucial tool for the country's security. But of course, as you've said, there are many opinions out there, and it's worth taking a look at them. Some extremists point out that there needs to be a withdrawal of U.S. troops from the Korean Peninsula to achieve peaceful and independent reunification of the two Koreas. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if some people just focused on the achieving the peaceful and independent reunification of the two Koreas, they can make that kind of the extreme the argument. But I don't agree personally about that, because as we talked a moment ago, the North Korea has been focused on improving its military capabilities, and the main target of such kind of military the capabilities and the improvement is the South Korea. So we also needed to think about why North Korea has been focused on enhancing its military capabilities. So the South Korea needed to have enough military capabilities to deal with such kind of the North Korea's military threats. And the main tool of securing the South Korea security from the North Koreans the military threat is the ROK-US alliance. That's the reality. So we need to consider the huge gaps between the reality and the ideal or the dream that we can dream of. So if we just ask the United States to pull the troops back, then we don't have any kind of the viable option to protect ourselves from the North Korean threat, and more importantly, we don't have the effective means of achieving the strategic and the balance in terms of the power politics in the region.
So we need the nuclear umbrella, which the United States has, at this recent Seoul Washington summit, promised to keep. One of the side effects, unfortunately, is the delicate balance between a U.S.-South Korea alliance and, of course, South Korea's relationship with China when it comes to especially economic relationship. This is an issue that can't be separated when discussing Seoul Washington alliance. The Yoon administration appears to be, of course, tilting towards the U.S. amid the country's blunt push for a grouping of like-minded nations fighting for democracy, which is at the forefront. It does raise China's eyebrows. How can we perhaps mitigate the possible side effects while keeping the alliances strong?
Well, we have a little bit complicating the reality that we need to the strengthen the RK-US alliance because the it has been cornerstone to the maintain our security and economic the interests. And meanwhile, as you mentioned, China is the very important trading partner of South Korea. So we also needed to maintain the favorable relationship with China. But the as you mentioned, the U.S. is pushing its allies and partners to be sided with the United States in its competition with China. So we need to have the more the delicate or the sophisticated the opinions and the stance between the world powers. So I think that it's about time for South Korea to establish the principled diplomacy based on our own national interests. So we first needed to focus on strengthening the ROK-US alliance to secure our the national capabilities for the future. Meanwhile, we also needed to the maintain the good relationship with China, but the when it comes to some kind of the complicating situations, so the conflict situation, then we need to have the our own the policy orientations and the policy stance based on our own national interest. It means that we can say yes and no at the same time to both U.S. and China based on our own national interest. And we needed to establish and maintain or strengthen the principle of diplomacy based on our own national interest and consistently. And if we have the consistency in that the diplomatic the direction, then I believe that other countries begin to understand what we want in our relationship with those countries.
In fact, that's how both the United States and China has operated with their national interest in mind. If we take a look at the IRA and the CHIPS Act, it clearly prioritizes American interests, keeping China in check. And South Korean automakers and chip makers seem to be the collateral damage. So some experts also want to chime in that the demise of the alliance is inevitable, or at least it's being tweaked as we speak, in fact. Do you think the alliance's future is at risk, or do you think it will adapt to the changing times?
Well, as you mentioned, the ROK-US alliance, and although the two countries are very close and very close friends and very trustworthy the partners, but if we a little bit go deeper in details, then we can easily find that we have some kind of gaps and the conflict between the countries because the both countries have a little different the economic their background, situations, and interests. So we need to talk and try to negotiate and try to narrow down the gaps between the two countries. So, but the meanwhile, it's also true that both countries, South Korea and the U.S., need each other because the U.S. has got the foundational the technologies in the advanced the technologies with high-tech industries, and the South Korea is one of the few countries that possess the enough manufacturing the capabilities in those important future the industries. So both countries need each other very much. That's why we can see there's the often the summit meetings between the two countries and the various and various meetings between the government officials very often. So I think that although we have some the conflict or the little bit the complicated situations because of the little bit different national interests between the two countries, but two countries needed to maintain their favorable relationships because that kind of the direction is definitely the favorable or beneficial to both countries. So I expect that the both countries try to maintain and strengthen the overall relationships between the two countries and try to resolve the conflicts and the problems that they face based on the close communications and negotiations.
And with that, Professor Min, we end the interview today. Thank you very much for the insights. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.